I have a couple loaded questions here that we can get into. Let's start with Matt. Love to hear a little bit about, you obviously as a UX researcher, designer, you work with drug delivery and drug delivery platforms and, managing basically patients' outcomes, right? How do you balance the, human factors validation versus innovation and driving new interaction models?
Well, so on one hand, when we think about validation of a medical device, that word is there because it's a regulatory-driven aspect of the development. So there's a lot of boxes that you have to check. Is innovation a box that you have to check? No. So it all boils down, in my experience at least, to what is the company that's developing the product's prioritization when it comes to the balance of bringing a product to market and doing something that's advancing the field. Because honestly, when it boils down, a lot of times the easiest solution is to put a product out there that is going to be an easy to sell, that's going to make the company money. I mean, to be frank, it's more about money sometimes than the joy of design. But I think there's a lot of value in those opportunities where you can push forward something that is both innovative from the drug perspective, but also innovative from the method of delivery and the user experience. And in doing so, something that I like to talk about, it always creates this, the intangible of hope. When you have a user seeing a product for the first time that is something that they think is going to give them a better user experience and improve their condition or improve their just everyday life. So I think that's where innovation comes in the most, is through some of those intangible emotional responses, more so than the actual necessarily design itself.
Excellent. So you've always been in medtech, right? Your entire career. And within medtech, there's so many different, I would say, verticals that you can be in, right? I think Novo Nordisk is really interesting, right? Because came out of diabetes care really, and now is known for GLP-1, obviously. And how do you keep innovating on like such a beast of a product platform?
I'd like to say an answer of, I can't answer that, but I can. Before I joined Novo, I was working in consulting, so I saw a whole spread of different manufacturers and the devices that they were working on, mainly in the combination product space and home healthcare. And if you become complacent, then innovation stops. And then you also have the question of, okay, an injection device is an injection device. What can you change about something that's been around for decades? At its core, you're chuckling. At its core, I mean, really, they're all the same. Maybe one you have to have a little bit more of a manual start to it, and maybe one's automatic. But at the core, they're pretty much the same principle. So I will say, I have been impressed to see the developments that are going on behind the scenes of what I cannot talk about. I don't even remember the question, but how do you innovate? Just trying new things and being willing to accept that they won't work. I have seen my colleagues become quite upset that solutions that they thought were really going to be the next thing in GLP-1s, for example, when they fail. But you can't have success without that failure. And it's the unfortunate truth of development that even from the drug innovation side, you're going to have, 99% of drugs fail. So let's take that 1% and then take however many device iterations that you have. Some of them are never going to be perfect. You might have to put that project on the back burner and come back to it or never come back to it. But it's just the ebbs and flows of the iterative design process and trying to see where innovation strikes, and then personally, where it is also then a usable device. Because what might be a beautiful design to you in this room will be, you'd love to see the mistakes that people make with it.
Amen. Yeah, you had something to say about this as well.
Me? About what?
Innovation,
Innovation?
balancing versus.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I think with the age change, my perspective shift. Okay, I think when I was younger, I think innovation for me is a little bit to satisfy my rebellion. Like I want to do something different. Like in every designer, I want to put my signature on something, so I want to make it different. But I think with joining ConvaTec along the journey, that made me reflect a lot about that is innovation is about a cultural shift. It's about not only about designer, engineer, researcher want to be innovative. We can actually bring the purpose and energy to the organization. But at the same time, it's about how we bring this kind of energy to reshape the culture and understanding. Like you say, if the let's say factory line worker, if they understand why the design decision or the choice by XYZ informed by the researcher, that why would this be useful and meaningful for the user, I guarantee you, they will push the bar for you. But the challenge is a lot of time in a large organization, this communication missed. So in the end, they are driving by their objectives. What is the objectives on the manufacturing line? Efficiency, consistency, quality. What does that mean? Any change is bad, right? So then we need to bring the meaning to their work. And that's where I see the value of transformation of the culture becomes a drive of innovation, not the role of designer, engineer, researcher.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Makes total sense.
So I feel like the role of the designer, in at least in my industry or in my company, is not design the next generation beautiful product. It's more of how do we leverage our design knowledge, partner with researchers to communicate, to bring people on board, to let them feel this is their own work and they are passionate, they want to change people's life. And give them the meaning of whether you're color choice, whether you're printing, whether you're IFU box. Why? Instead of, well, because I like it, because I want to make a difference. It's more like how can we together bring this value and purpose to other people's life.
Thank you. Clotilde, putting you on the spot.
All right. Yeah, for me, innovation is going back to your notion of hope. It's all about the dream, right? It's like, what if we could do things better? And I think some of us have this curiosity. We just have to. We're just like, what if there's something new? What can I do to help, other people, the environment, the universe, everything? Like, what if we could do something different? And then trying. There's no, as you said, there's no single way towards the path. But I also really love your comment about doing it together because, we're all here because we like doing things together. And it's really when we all share our perspectives and bring the designers, the engineers, the manufacturing folks, everybody together. It's like, yeah, what if? And let's make it happen. So that's my dream about innovation.
Interesting. Yeah, I think what's interesting is especially the work we're doing at Loft. Like sometimes I wish that companies would be like bringing us in a little bit earlier. I'm sure you guys are consultants out there. You're like, oh, you're done. Now we want you to validate this. There's all kinds of problems.
I will tell you the same thing in-house. The in-house design team, research team is facing exactly the same challenge. So you need to actually reshape the culture and process. Right. So then the external smart people and talent, internal team can evolve in the right time. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
You guys are all, pretty seasoned leaders, and I think the FDA has, I would say, got better in giving us guidance as developers.
Yeah.
Where do you see kind of the human factors landscape evolving in the next 5 to 10 years? You want to get started?
I actually have a good answer for this one. So the next frontier of human factors is the world of platform devices, at least in the combination product space. If you've never heard of platforms, I'll distill it down to why are we going through full-scale development efforts that could take 3+ years for the exact same device when all you're changing is what's on the inside.
Yep. Great.
Good audience for this. Yeah, so that's basically what I think is next is working with the FDA. It's actually a personal thing that I've been working on is figuring out how we can leverage the existing documentation that the FDA has put out with different guidance documents in a strategic and creative way such that we are following everything that they are recommending, but in a way that makes it much more efficient for us to develop a product as a large-scale company, but also for smaller-scale startups that might be wanting to innovate in the same space. And at the same time, making it easier for the FDA themselves, because why would they need to go through so many rounds of reviewing the exact same reports and the exact same files where they're not going to learn anything new, and we are also not telling them anything new. So we are all just wasting a lot of time and money to do a checkbox exercise.
Audits didn't have to go through.
So that's what I think is next is platforms. But I mean I can only really speak to combination products. So I'm not sure about with medical devices more broadly, but AI.
Clotilde, you want to throw your hat in here?
So what was the question?
Yeah, where how can we see the future shaping with the FDA and changing regulatory landscapes?
Well, I mean, to me, it's all about the spirits of the FDA and the regulation, which is they're here to keep us safe. And so to me, regulatory is a necessary, not evil, but, inconvenience that we just do for the safety of us all. So I really try to see regulations as an opportunity to leverage the expertise of others so we don't all have to have that same rigor in how we define things. So to me, regulation is always about, incorporating other people's experience instead of having to do it ourselves, and we just have to go through the process.
Excellent.
I don't have anything to comment on.
You don't nothing to say.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, great.
My next question, then I think I want to open it up for some questions from the audience. If you guys want to, any questions from the audience?
Can you go in a little bit more into the examples of platform products or devices?
Sure. I can speak from the Novo Nordisk perspective on this. So we have our own pen injector that we have called the Flex Touch, which houses a lot of different drugs. So things from insulins to GLP-1s, growth hormone. It's the exact same device itself. The only thing that differs, maybe the color. One is blue, one is green. The labeling, the drug, the patients that are using it, and maybe the scaling of the dosage. But at its core, it's the same platform of the Flex Touch pen injector. So when we talk about it, we have conducted 60-something formative studies and nearly 20 summative or validation studies on the Flex Touch pen injector, meaning we've had 1,500 participants use the same product that works the same way, regardless of all of those changes. So it's the goal of what I was mentioning is to how do you minimize that effort when really it's the exact, there's nothing that changes about how the device is used other than the more superficial aspects of it.
Can I add to that a little bit? As I'm going to bring my personal experience to this. So I've used GLP-1s before, and I've used the Novo Nordisk, and I've used the injector pen. For me, what changed the user experience for me was the intense pressure to not F it up, because that pen cost me $1,200 for the first one, and every drop was gold. And so that I'm an industrial designer. I'm a smart person. I can use these. I cannot tell you, that was really terrifying, that first use, because what if I screwed it up and I lost a week's worth of dose? So which is different than like, say, maybe a pen that comes with something that's filled that costs me $40. Do you know what I mean? So there's like, again, it's back to that the latent use cases that really affect that user experience and that the expectations there.
I have a question to follow up on that, because it seems like the price per unit would seem like it would go down if there's an efficiency you're gaining as a platform device. It seems like you'd gain efficiencies across all businesses, but maybe I'm just misreading how a platform kind of works.
I appreciate your optimism. Yeah. Ideally. I think at least in the world of GLP-1s, the issue that's the industry is facing is that the demand is exceeding supply.
Yeah.
And it's causing GLP-1 manufacturers to try to understand, well, how can we bring these products to market faster and in different forms? So whether it's an auto-injector, pen injector, a vial and syringe where you have to do the work yourself to fill up your dose, pre-filled syringes, how can filling lines match the demand? Perhaps it will bring the price down. I mean, there have been decreases in the pricing because of competition, but yeah, if you're going out of pocket, it's obscene. And this isn't going to be about the U.S. Healthcare industry, but maybe it will be. But perhaps it might be an optimistic outlook that could be ideally what we can accept to improve access in that regard.
Yeah, I have one more question. So you had said something really interesting where you were talking about essentially the translator, right? The why behind the change or the update or whatever. And I worked in B2B, B2C, SaaS development, and a key role there was the BA. And so they were there to tell the developers that why. So I'm asking you to make this change to something that's already working. I'm going to tell you why we're going to do it so that you can get your head around it and say, okay, I'm behind that. I'll do the change. Is that role missing, or is somebody not maybe stepping up to that role where we could be better at it?
I think from my past experience along the journey working in large organizations, including Novo, by the way, and I feel like when in the large organization, everybody is driven by their own small sub-organizations' objectives. Okay, so the challenge is the intent, I would say that, is going to lose in translation. It's not like they don't care.
Right.
Okay. However, at the same time, everybody have their own focus. I think designer or researcher is in a very unique role. That many times we actually have access of every perspective at the same time, whether it's a user, whether it's a business need, whether it's a constraint for the production, right? That's how you come out with good design, because you need to be that holistic.
Yes.
And that's kind of make designer generally curious and make a success. And in this way, that I don't believe besides product owner who can be a better translator than design. Okay, and the product owner typically love to talk from also a very business angle, and where I think the designer can play a very special role by bringing the user or customer's voice in front of everyone. Because at least in my organization, like my team is the sole team that bring the user voice onto the R&D team. If we don't do the job, it will be buried by all the statistics.
Mm-hmm.
This is cost of good. This is how much time. This is headcount. You're done. Because you will never win that argument. The movement that we can do, at least in my view, is about, like what Matt said, the soft argument that about the care that other part missing. And that's part I do think is going to be more and more important in the future in this AI arena, because efficiency is not going to be a problem.
Right.
The problem is that human trust and touch going to be missing. And that storytelling, yeah, AI maybe do something, but when things like a fast food that fast, I don't think it will lose its genuine and that connection. I think that is our unique value. And so to your point, why designer? Because our role, because of our, I think, training and ability, because many of you here work in this industry or care about this industry, because we believe we can make a difference, right? Or you can always go to, sorry to say that, tech sector, make more money. Seriously.
Yeah.
Google pay you more, Meta pay you more, and I think you can all go there. But I think the part that make me believe in medical device need more designer and innovator is because, well, one of us or our family may need to use them. And can you accept that substantial, engineered, horrible product? I can't. So instead of leaving our fate to other people, I'd rather do something ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm
Thank you.
direct to a different direction.
That's perfect. Yeah, I've a last round of questions before, and maybe you guys can jump in with questions. Obviously, everybody talks about AI. I would say I want to make a two-tiered question. There's, I would say, the economy of becoming more efficient by the usage of AI. I'd love to hear your perspective in the human factors field, how you are leveraging AI in your field, and then I also want to hear like the innovation potential, right? So we have, for example, clients that are using AI for stent placement, right? So doctors are stressed out; they don't necessarily want to kind of start measuring, where to place a stent. AI can do that for you, right? So there's pretty good examples of companies doing good work in that space. But yeah, first question: how do you personally leverage? And I'm going to start with Clotilde, and then the second question is, what do you see the innovation potential for human factors, new products through kind of AI data science?
Yeah, so my dream about AI is that right now it's very text focused. I don't know about you all, but I don't like to read text any more than I have to. And AI is a technology interface. AI is a technology and a human on the other side. Right now we're using text to transform the information, and I cannot wait to see what you all and the smart people of the world invent in terms of AI interface towards the human factor side. It's like not everybody is receptive to beautiful prose. Some people like visual, some people like auditory input. And right now, I mean, it's just very text heavy, and it is in our hands as designers to say, look, great, there's a text bit in the process, but the human factor, the human in us wants more than just text. So what do we do about it? And to me, the human is a little bit lost in the AI conversation right now. And so how do we bring it back? And what can we do to make it happen? New interfaces like the keyboard and mouse. Maybe that's, the past.
Well, let's wait for Johnny. Johnny has.
All right, Johnny's going to solve the problem. So, but yeah, what is it? What is it that's possible for that helps the human better? And my daughter has dyslexia. Text is never going to be the thing that she can work with. But what can we do to help her learn, get educated in a way that she can leverage her skills, her creativity, just bypassing the text part? So my hope for AI is that it serves the human, not just the tech. And the second question, or should we do the first question first?
First round, yeah.
I'm reluctant to use AI camp, and I've kind of been messaging that to my team as well, particularly because I find that AI doesn't really capture the human experience, and as a human factors engineer, that is entirely what we are supposed to be doing, is capturing the human experience. The second part was the challenge, and I shouldn't talk about that.
You can if you want to, yeah.
Because the challenge that we're facing is that as the FDA is moving toward a more AI-driven review process, what does that mean for the work that we are doing? Does the nuance of capturing the human experience, like I just mentioned, actually matter? Or are we trying to optimize what we're writing so that the AI loves it? We don't know that yet. But I think something for me is that, an in-person usability study can never be replaced by AI, I say, I hope. But we have been seeing where AI still can support human factors work. And a big area of that is when we need to justify certain things. When mistakes happen or we have questions about certain data sets, some details of, force capabilities of users when it comes to being able to push a button to administer a highly viscous drug. There might not be anthropometric data out there or any force data that exists, but there might be that you can't find easily, but there are AI tools that can support you in that research process and save you a lot of time. But it's figuring out where AI best suits your needs to supplement the work that you do rather than replace the work that you do.
Well said.
I think for me, my angle is more like it's kind of like it's unavoidable. You have to accept it going to be there. Okay, it's kind of like a revolution. I think the challenge now is our system, whether it's in the FDA or in the company, itself. Like how do you balance, the safety, security, confidentiality versus workflow efficiency. But I think will come. Okay, whether it's used to analyze the transcript of your interview, which takes a lot of time, right? Or maybe even further, build this AI model to evaluate the heuristic before the concept even do the user testing to save researchers precious time to do the right thing.
Right. I think the one thing that worries me a little bit is, as an experienced human factors, professional, I think it's really life-saving sometimes because you can work a lot faster. But if you don't know what you're looking for, it can be very dangerous, right? Because you can't rely on the answer to be accurate. So I think that, in a sense, if you're like new in the field, it's really challenging, because you just don't know how to validate it because there's no other, angle to take, right? So that's what worries me about. Like down the line, are we training up the next generation with the wrong habits?
Probably.
Yeah.
And you asked me about the challenges for data science, and for me, when I was doing data science at Philips, I always used to say, great, you have the dump truck of data backing up your driveway, and then now you have data. Now what? And the AI will never do that kind of. Why? What are we looking for? The human for the human has to decide, why are we doing this? What are we looking for before you can find it? Because the systems can always find patterns, and that's not the difficult part. Is why are these patterns relevant? Why should I care? How do I use them? How do I make them actionable? So it's all about the why the machine will never do, and that's our role.
Excellent. Adam, you had a question?
Yeah, I think similar to this AI conversation, I feel like we've moved as a culture, we've moved into an area of like general uncertainty and a lot of skepticism, I would say, in like the medical and health system, especially since a lot of our health tech and medical devices are moving more into people's homes, moving into more of like an outpatient setting. I'm just wondering how you all are thinking about that with the general rise in skepticism of medical devices, of the medical system, of medical devices in general. I know we in this room, we have a lot of faith in the medical devices that we're creating and that we're supporting, but just wonder how we communicate, the trustworthiness of products and of systems to the general public. I just wonder if anybody has any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, right? So we have a client, we just talked about this actually 2 days ago. The future of home care, dialysis at home, chemotherapy at home. I think I can't, I think the threshold of really having an in-home experience that is like, as secure, as safe as point of care will be an endless, it's gonna take us another 20 years. I truly believe this because there's so, whoever is doing human factor studies at home realizes how much stuff can go wrong. Where the R&D guys come up with a system and then all of a sudden the patient has no idea how to actually use it. Right? So I think that's the challenge. I think we have to be careful that we're not creating devices that hurt people. Right? So.
Sorry. Trustworthiness. At least in the human factor side, we often think about this aspect of foreseeable misuse versus the idea of unforeseeable misuse, which we don't really want to worry about. But I think it's with increased skepticism, where are you drawing the line for what is foreseeable misuse? I remember when I was in school, we were this idea of thinking about all the mistakes somebody could make. And my professor shared a story when he was a student about how he wrote, I think, 40 pages of a list of something that could go wrong while using the product, where everyone else in the class had 5. Right? You can go on and on and on. But I think you can move this idea of having trust through also trusting the users a bit. They might not have trust in you, but you still have to have trust in them. And you're going to see all these mistakes. You're going to see reluctance. You're going to see people dip off from using a product because they don't like the experience. You might never actually hear about why they are not using a product anymore or why they cut corners. But I think that's the importance of also diversifying the types of user research that you're doing, not just for something that's while in development, but also a contextual inquiry, for example, of seeing a product in use in its actual setting might give you a better understanding of where the skepticism is coming from. And we work with some anthropologists as well to get a stronger baseline of what is the context that you're creating a product for? Because you can say, oh, I'm designing a product for diabetes, but or even that's a bad example. Even let's do some new treatment area that your team hasn't worked in before. You can do all the desk-based research that you want, but until you actually know why, not why, but how a person would actually use this product, if at all, you might be doing all of this work, all of this design process for nothing. So I think it really boils down to just understanding the context of the user and making something that fits their needs as best as possible while still giving them space to breathe and trusting that you can design something that works and they will use it as the best way that they can for them.
A couple more questions and then we wrap it up.
I was going to ask, do you have an example of a product that didn't make it through the gauntlet and what you learned from that experience? Because in healthcare, there's always aspirations, but those dreams can tend to die during regulatory reviews and business pivots and things like that. So just curious what your thoughts are. I do. Or maybe it's all sunshine and rainbows and never had it happen.
No, there's tons.
Yeah.
So I think the part that okay, let me give you an example in abstract. Okay, imagine in some past life, like there's a companies very ambitiously want to create connected device systems, okay, that serve chronic condition patients, which is very logical next step, right? To provide the service, provide the care, provide the training for the user to be able to use things safely, and also stay adhered to the drug, right? Then you want to have a connect device to be able to track how they do things, stuff like that. Like the whole system actually designed to help HCPs how to better prescribe and educate, which we also learned in the hard way that I thought the HCP is the most knowledgeable person, till I learned it's not. Okay. So at the end, the whole initiative spends maybe, if not 50 to 100 million, with 5 years plus, and everything. rapid sort of way. And the reason is, well, that's not the pharmaceutical company's core business. Hard lesson. Hard lesson in a way that what is pharma doing? Selling drug. And selling drug. And my biggest learning in the pharma industry, working for both Novo and Lilly, is it's a very risk-averse company. And I'm told that the risk is, if it's not about the drug, including device, it's all considered as a risk. Not about user experience.
Yeah.
Okay. Right? So we think about, well, user want a community. Let's give them a digital community. Guess what? Liability. What if they say something wrong? Right? What if they cause a diverse event? How do we report to FDA? Risk averse. No, we don't do that. Right? How about connected device? Oh, what if the data report wrong? Whoops. Okay, let's don't do that. All these are cost and the risk. Yeah, user experience will be great. User will know better, they get better support. Doesn't matter. It's about business. Right? So in a way that it's about, my reflection on that is, whatever we do, we need to be very sensitive about the incentives. Whether it's people around you or the organization's incentive, what drives them, and how do we make sure that what we do somehow link to their motivation, okay, that have some relevance to them, or the objective can give them some benefit. I think that's the beauty of working in this industry, which I think people always talk about stakeholder complexity. I couldn't imagine any industry is more complex than this industry. You have doctor, you have nurse, you have hospital, you have insurance, you have government, you have your internal stakeholder. That is one of the most complex system before you can even put your product into the market. They have all green light for you before you can do something. And that's fascinating. And that's why I think teamwork and bring people along becomes very important. And how to understand incentive better, I think that's about what we are good at. Understand and curious about people. Understand and curious about the system. Right? And of course, on top of that, you need to have a good research knowledge. You need to have a good design skill. I'm talking about what goes in.
Couple more questions here.
Do you also consider doctors and trained professionals in your research and design process? Because the relationship between a doctor and a patient is something that cannot be adjusted through AI, even though hospitals are becoming more conglomerate, especially here in Boston.
I can take that. I think it depends on the product, right? So obviously, drug delivery, the patient is really at the center, because it's really about that relationship of the outcome, the patient outcome. Many other design, we only talk to doctors, right? I mean, we give them tools, that's basic set of tools to perform their work better. I think AI will be really, I would say, could be a lifesaver there. If you have doctors lately, doctors are overworked, they have a million things going on. They constantly push for more patient throughputs. So I would say the biggest user errors come from just not having the time to spend with a patient and really try to get it, basically get as many patients through shift. Yeah.
I have a follow-up question. So my dad is a doctor and he is a pulmonologist, and the most important thing for him is the relationship between himself and his patients. And although he is overworked, he would rather sacrifice, something like AI to remove the relationship that he has with his patients, because he does not want his patient speaking to a device. He wants a patient and two human beings speaking with each other, because patients are usually people who are kind of have humanity taken away from them in a lot of aspects. So in terms of designing a product, do you guys also consider how doctors can explain and train the patients to use the product?
I think all the time, to be honest.
Yeah, I think, at least for my experience, we typically involve experts or doctors, HCPs, in our workflow. Okay, it is crucial in terms of how do they train the patient. You are actually hitting a very interesting point. Is that the billable hour? I think your father is very special. Okay, and on top of that, even they can train, For example, I can give you like one example that we experienced recently is patient actually goes through the ostomy surgery, right? And they are actually in the recovery, and they will need to use this ostomy bag for the rest of their time. And they were being trained by the HCPs in the hospital for days. And after they go home, the first thing they say, I don't know how to use this product. They need to exchange the first time. Do they go through everything? Yes, but they are actually under a lot of influence in the in the hospital. On top of that, they need to receive more than these medical devices, usage information. Their lifestyle going to change. Whether it's any chronic disease will be like that. So I think there will be something that we can help the doctor in terms of in the design process can do, but at the same time, like for a condition like Alzheimer's care or any chronic condition like diabetes, user will always have question along the journey that is somehow surprise them. And with that, let's go back to AI. I do feel AI can play a very critical role to personalize and solve this problem for the doctors. Because I don't believe the doctor will want to make a phone call in the midnight. What happened if this is a problem, right? And I have encountered that. Right? So I think there are some opportunities.
No, so well, with all this, I'm curious about how you feel, the regulatory landscape. Obviously, have a particular administration that we're all dealing with in different ways. AI. So, in terms of things like equity, access to care, speed, are you optimistic for the next 5 or so years, or pessimistic, and why? About just having more impact with society in terms of all that.
I'm very optimistic actually. I talked to some folks. We just came from we just started a pilot summit study for an imaging device, and we were always joking like, and I'm sure you guys are all when human factors work. Young doctors that have been out for like 5 years that are specialized in a field are the funnest people to work with because they like the technology, they love their work. They're not totally burned out yet. It is really very rewarding to work with them because I feel like if you want to change healthcare, you got to talk to the young doctors, right? Because they have that that lifeblood in them. And 99% of them don't do it for the money. They do it because they really want to make an impact. So I think I'm pretty positive. I think what happens is as they're getting older and longer, the healthcare systems are wearing them out, and they get really kind of more cynical and obviously not as enthusiastic, right? So.
That's great. Just for drug delivery, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I don't feel the same optimism. I don't know. I think it's a little bit more difficult. I think it's harder to have advancements that push the field, especially when there's already, at least in the GLP-1 space, when there's so much in the news about the limits to access and the costs. It's not a solution that we're going to get overnight, and we feel, at least in my team, the domino effect of that, of what can we do? Not really that much. I mean, we can try our best, but it's not the same, something that we can say, oh yeah, we're going to help improve access tomorrow. It's, we have this problem now, we're going to improve access in 18 months. I mean, if optimism works on that scale, I mean, yeah, but I unfortunately results being more of a realist in that matter from that side of things. Yeah.
Okay, one more question.
So this kind of ties into a few questions that have been floating around, as well as some answers from our panel here. But when we're talking about devices, whether it's an auto-injector or home care for folks with chronic conditions, the fact of the matter is, as you mentioned earlier, a lot of this is still coming from pharma. This is coming from a very calculating entity, which, while ultimately beneficial in the sense that it provides medications, it is still a very, very controlled business. And in turn, margins and overhead are different. So with that in mind, how best can we holistically, as potential designers within the industries, folks within the industries, work to try to better the sort of emotional design, not just the object, because a lot of them are very technical and designed down to a point where it exactly what it needs to do for this amount of money. But I just keep thinking about auto-injectors because a lot of people have severe phobias about injections, about needles, about any kind of puncturing devices. So like, have you ever seen opportunities to, even just in the way that packaging is designed, the way that the touch points and the things that even just cardboard is designed so that it is more approachable. It feels sterile in the sense of medical sense, but not sterile in the sense of being unapproachable. Like, are there opportunities within these single-use items that are so cost-effective to still bring in that empathy for the user?
Question for you, man.
Oh God. The answer is yes.
When you say product complaint departments, that's kind of where you get the feedback for those types of things.
Yeah. Yeah, we have the customer complaint centers that works to understand this, and then how can you translate that as you develop a design further? But let's say you're starting from scratch with a new product, or the next generation of an existing product. It is a challenge. The answer is yes, but it is a challenge. Phobias, how do you break that down? You can't, but you can communicate in the instructions where you actually don't show the needle. You can have certain components be opaque instead of any sort of level of translucent. You can force the touch points in such a way that there's not even a chance of them coming close to a needle. But then the big money question is, well, an injection's an injection. How do you get rid of a needle for an injection? Or rather, how do you adjust the psychology of giving the injection such that it doesn't feel like one? So, for example, I worked on this product.
Yeah, of course.
I worked on this project a couple of years ago that was for an existing drug. That I mentioned highly viscous earlier. This was a quite highly viscous drug, one that I've never seen before, where when you would push the plunger, it was almost like a very thick silly string where it congealed in a string off of the syringe. It was obviously incredibly painful for patients to administer this drug. And then you also factor in that this was for a cancer treatment. So they say, how can we make this a less painful experience? And that included making the needle smaller. But in doing so, that completely made the user experience have a 180 because the combination of the needle size and the viscosity and the volume made it such that humans did not have the physical strength to administer the injection. So then they had to resort to a digital solution with a motorized injection device, which has its pluses and minuses, but it introduced a whole different psychology of how are you communicating the safety and presence of a needle when you have, instead of an injection device that's about yay big, you have one that's yay big. Yeah, more than yay. I think I might be rambling, but it's not an easy solution, but there's all of these different nuance depending on the type of product that you're designing and the patient population. If they are using existing therapies, what does that transfer look like from one to another? But how can you start from the very early stages of the design and build up that empathy and understand really what are the concerns when it comes to injections and designing it in a way that improves the psychology. It's not an easy feat. I think if you had the answer, you should have a very high hourly rate if you do.
Excellent. Well, we want to wrap it up so you guys can mingle, but please come up and have questions. We can follow up in smaller groups. Thank you for coming. And enjoy yourself. Thank you so much. Just clear.